How shall I start?
We should just start and say who they are. It's actually the first time we're doing this. It's like a tag team, you know, because basically Melvin here didn't want to do it by himself. So we thought, you know, let's do it all together and just make it like a conversation. Because you guys are all family, right? You're family, yeah? You all make records. You aspire to be like these gentlemen on stage here. Yeah? So there you go. So it's all, we're all family. Okay, so.
A warm welcome to Tad Mullinix, a.k.a. James T. Cotton, a.k.a. Dabry, a.k.a. I don't even know what to continue. SK1, you do that.
Charles Manier.
What?
Who else?
And my birth name, that's right.
Okay. Too many aliases, but we'll get into that. And also, Traxx,
a.k.a. You have to think about this one, right?
Yeah, but Mullinix, the Green Goblin.
Mullinix, actually, really? I have one of those records. Those are incredible. I didn't know that it was you.
Yes, the Green Goblin, the Poetic Painter M, Mutant Beat Dance, Saturn 5, X2, Dirty Criminals.
So it's actually keeping tracks of all the names, right? It's really a lot of names. Okay.
All right. So why don't we? You know what? Why don't we play something? Let's just play something. Let's just start it off with some music.
You're doing music together as well, and that's.
JTC and I are known as Saturn 5, but also we're known as X2, but also X2 does special projects as DeMarc Cantu and Traxx. So sometimes it's X2 as Traxx DMC, but then other times it's JTC, Traxx, DMC, DeMarc Cantu. So it's like
that's right.
It's
we got a lot of
all
projects.
over. Yeah.
Are you sure about that?
Yes.
Yeah. That's how it goes.
This is honest. I mean, but it's like when it comes to X2, you have to either read the credits to see if it's 2 members or it's 3 members.
Yeah, he wants you to do your research, basically.
You want to keep those Discogs people busy, right?
We try to. It's kind of weird because on Discogs, they kind of have like all these different pages for me. And I'm kind of lazy, and I don't really want to go and like tell the Discogs people, hey, can you put it all into one? They'll be like, we don't think we can do that.
But don't you think that's a strategy to have 200 different Discogs profiles so more people can actually find out about that?
Well,
no.
When the days of MySpace, which I actually still use, and we still actually have our pages there, like literally all of them. JTC, don't lie, you know you got your page.
I don't use it anymore.
Kind of
I still do because sometimes people are still requesting me.
Yeah, that's fine.
You know, and you know, I don't want to be, you know, just close everything down. Some people, okay, Facebook is the deal, but still people are old school. It's like Smith and Wesson.
You're kind of analog in the web world to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
You could say that if you talk about Friendster.
Yeah.
All right.
You know,
Friendster, you're going there, right? Okay.
I mean, that's the only account I can't go back to. I can't go back to Friendster anymore, but I would love to. But people were talking about that on Facebook some time ago. They were like, what happened to Friendster? They were like, man, someone should reopen Friendster. I forgot who said it, but I thought it was hilarious. But in the same way, it's like, you know, if you think about it, Friendster became the new MySpace, and then everybody was like, MySpace, right? All of you guys, don't front. And then all of you guys were like, oh yeah, Facebook, right?
Right.
And now everybody's on Google+.
Let me answer her. Yeah, you know, the reason why Facebook isn't important anymore is because people got so used to what they think could create this type of interest in objectivity to like have amusement. And for me, I love Facebook. It's just I'm not trying to have so many people, and the people that are actually, if I add you, it's by like honestly communication, and you want to make a friendship. It's not really
like a
about
genuine,
like
a genuine
oh,
relationship.
you're coming, because I don't have like a Traxx page.
Yeah.
Because Traxx is an entity, an emotional energy, and I want to keep the spirit of Traxx true. And to do that would just be, I think, a little bit of like, for me, because everyone talks about what is underground, who's selling out, and so forth, but I guess this will be discussed later. But I don't really want to promote Traxx like that. That's what my label Nation is for, is to promote Traxx and the artist. That way, with our fan pages like JTC and Demarcon 2 and Mutant Beat Dance and Saturn 5 and 2AM FM, you can still talk to us and you can support us if you really are interested in what we are doing, musically speaking.
It's kind of a good system.
How do you explain your next door neighbor, what the spirit of Traxx is? When you were talking about the spirit of Traxx, how would you explain that?
Well, your next door neighbor is Gene Hunt, right?
No, my neighbor next door is actually he's an old friend that I went to high school with, and he used to actually party at like the music box and stuff like this. So we're always talking about the old days, and he listens to some of my stuff. I gave him a copy of my album when it dropped in 2009, or at least my debut album. In 2009, so he supported it. But I asked him to come out to parties. But you know, hey, everyone has their life, you know, and when you have your life and you have stuff to do, when that time comes, maybe he will come. But until then, you know, hey, we're still boys, so it's totally cool. But to answer your question, maybe Traxx is like a neighbor. My landlord kind of trips out on it, so he kind of tells all of his people, like, hey, this guy living in my house, this is Traxx. And so then everyone is like, yeah, whatever, you know? But for me, whatever is just like the most bullshit fucking word I ever heard. So is anyway. It's bullshit, complete bullshit. Like, I don't even use those words in my vocabulary because it's just not
You don't even swear usually.
I swear, but in a different way. But
you swear with the snares, perhaps.
No,
when it comes to this stuff, you'll swear.
Well, whatever. It's just a bullshit word because everyone like uses whatever. When you really think about it, whatever is a word to get out of what you really want to say. If you actually want to say something, why don't you just say it? Oh, whatever. How the fuck do you sound?
Damn, you just used the F word, dude.
Okay.
Cursing as you hear it.
We can get to the cursing, particularly when it's the whole analog digital debate in a second. But I think we should just kick off things sonically. Would you like to play us something?
It's not a problem. It's just like I think everything should be spoken about, you know? Like, we could talk about music, sure, I'd love to, but at that same point, I just wanted to say, like, these two words are just a human condition that people use to escape what they really want to say.
Sure, I get that.
Why say it? Now I didn't say fuck.
So how did the collaborations come about?
I was working at a record store in Ann Arbor, early 2000s, and there's a really amazing DJ and friend of mine named Carlos Affront. If you haven't seen him yet, you have to see him. You know, when it comes to music in general, but in this case, dance music, I would definitely urge you to see Carlos Affront if you ever see him on the bill. Anyway, he was working with me at Todd Osborne's a record store called Dub Plate Pressure, and I was talking to Carlos, and I talked about how I saw you, Traxx, at a show back in the day, in the early, mid-'90s. at the Packard plant in Detroit, DJing with. I think you were DJing with DJ Skull and DJ Hell, and.
Yeah, you guys know these people.
Robert Hood or someone like that, or Claude Young. I can't remember who exactly.
There was a lot of heads.
Twans, probably.
Was that the blowout party?
I don't remember.
Could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was it.
Anyway, so I remember seeing him play, and he's if you've seen Traxx spin, you don't forget, right? So I went on in my life and later was working at this record store with Carlos and Todd, and I talked to Carlos on many occasions about Melvin, and Carlos said, "Yeah, I've got a mixtape of Melvin spinning all Larry Heard tracks or something like that." I can't remember what the mixtape was called. Do you?
It was called Larry Christmas like a Christmas fingers. Thank you. It was the Christmas fingers session.
Yeah.
And at the time, when Tad was listening to this mix, I had acquired there was a sort of loose end from a distributor in Chicago that had all these rare gherkin and alleviated products from Larry Heard. So I was so excited. So I made this mix with everything, which is this second part of Gherkin Jerks, which was called the 1990 Traxx.
Yeah.
And
yeah. So that's the mix I heard, right?
Yeah.
And then years later, here's Carlos at the record store with me playing this mixtape, and it was just. It was like a real treat for me. Anyway, whatever Carlos played for me was a treat. But then to have this, double-decker style treat that day was amazing for me. So I listened to Melvin playing these Larry Heard tracks with all this cycling rhythm on, these bass lines that repeated on an odd number, so that you had this weird cycling thing going on within the rhythm, was sort of the foundation for a lot of the things that I got into. You have these tracky rhythms and these old house rhythms with this great mixed by this really talented DJ. So he played that for me, and it left an impression. Years later, I was DJing at a club in Detroit called The Shelter, and here comes Melvin approaching me in the basement, and I was did you ask me if I was Charles Magnier, or did you just know who I was at the
I didn't know I didn't know you were Charles Magnier, but I had heard a record which I'm still really not even sure if it's his first production or his second one, but it was a 12-inch that he did, and it's got a kid on a swing. And
you're talking about the James D. Cotton thing.
Yes,
okay.
But it was this long track, and it had these type of sequences that were along at that time when Tad heard me, that I was really sort of I thought nobody cared about somehow trying to go forward with what had already happened between Chicago and Detroit. And this long track it's not really a normal record, and it's not a repetitive record because it goes maybe, okay, the first 16 bars, and then the next 32 bars, and then 8 bars, it changes to something else. But it was the things in between that made me interested to go see this guy at the Shelter in Detroit and tell him how much what maybe he also didn't know that people appreciated.
Yeah, that room was empty. That room was totally empty. And here comes Melvin,
yeah,
somebody I really highly regarded and still do, and coming up to me and being like, "Hey, you're this guy, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "We gotta work, dude. We gotta work, dude." And totally cornering me, right? But I was just knowing who he is, really enthusiastic about it. Anyway, so that's the story of how we met.
About Saturn V, yes, Tad's right. First of all, I've never taken any kind of hard drugs in my life. So my energy is so powerful, it's like, it's just unexplainable. And sometimes in situations, I have a high-pitched tone in my voice, and it can be either really raunchy and ruckus, or it can be like a, I don't know, like almost like Sylvester when he was doing like Dance With Me in the Disco Heat, kind of sounding like that, because I get so excited about things that it gets really exciting. Like, you know, it can get like that, you know, or even worse. See, he's making fun of me, but this is cool. He's making fun of me because you know, if we should happen to happen in this moment where we're discussing and you hear me say, dude, it's a reason why I'm saying dude, because of maybe you guys will be like, oh shit, or wow, or oh man. I just say,
das ist so eine Scheiße, oder? Dude!
Das ist oder. Dude! You know, so in this way, okay.
Explanation.
So, explanation. So Saturn V came together, and we did our first productions for Jamal Moss at the time, that was running a legendary label from Stephen Poindexter called Music Records. And actually, to clarify the point, our very first productions were on actually Dirty Criminals. JTC was actually a part of Dirty Criminals since like the very first album.
Yeah, on International DJ Gigolo.
So this was the first album that
when was
2000. That? The first album was 2000. It was Organized Confusion.
Yeah.
And Charles Manier did 2 tracks on there with myself alongside Jamal, and all of us. We did a full completion of a concept. And JTC's pretty much has always been with me since like I literally cornered him in Detroit. Because
with pleasure.
Because he just, from that point on, I just never knew how much more there was, and I'm
you have to realize this is this is a head, right? This is a head, and I'm a head, and there are probably other heads in here too.
You know.
And there are a lot of young people that just kind of get into music, and what happens is when you're an old head and a bunch of other young people get into music, you know, there's something gets lost somehow. You know, there's some people
what do you mean?
Well, I mean, you know, for example, I was at my cousin's house the other day, and his friend came over, and he said, yeah, I'm a big fan of yours. I'm like, oh, really cool. And he's like, I just love Jack and House. I'm like, really? Like, who else do you like? And I wasn't trying to challenge him. It was just small talk, right? And then he says, you know, all these names I've never heard of before. And I'm like, who are these people? And he goes onto this like online MP3 website and draws down all these names, and they're all in this subgenre called Jacking House, and it's nobody I've ever heard before. And I realized at that moment that this is just some like new young MP3 website culture that uses this old title in a different way. And in fact, what I listened to was a lot like, it sounded a lot like Daft Punk in the late 90s or something like that. But it wasn't Jack and House's in terms of like the history, in terms of like Chicago and Detroit and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I think it's a very modern problem. You know, it's a bit like, you know, the modern take on what dubstep is in England. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? People think Skrillex is dubstep.
Yes,
yeah,
I
we
know
don't know,
exactly.
you know where we're going with this. So it's a very interesting problem. I think for me it boils down to the whole idea of history. I think there's this kind of this disconnect between the roots of a genre or the roots of a music and the social media roots of it. Do you know what I mean? They're two totally different things.
I would agree.
Well, sometimes, you go ahead.
No. I would just say I would agree. No, please, Tad, you speak. I'll speak after you.
Sometimes I just wonder that people come into a new scene not fully understanding it, but the whole social media thing is so enticing for a young artist that they just immediately go with like keywords or some hype word or whatever. And it might not mean what it used to mean, but it doesn't really matter anymore. And in a way that's ironic to me, because like information now is so available with this the internet and everything.
But also the problem is without getting too deep into it, I find that the actual champion, the conduit who are journalists, particularly when it comes to not all blogs, but a lot of blogs don't know anything about the history. They know about how to write text in a way that captures keywords and is search engine optimized. But that's got nothing to do with the actual history and the foundations of music, history, genres, or whatever. So, so again, we're in a very interesting time, I think, with music and what people, you know, how you class genres, how you relate the past to now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And again, I think for me, one of the reasons why CDR exists is the fact that, you know, you have a lot of people who make records, right? And I know for us, it's about making music, and then sometimes people label you with this genre or this tag or whatever. But I think for a lot of people, making music is actually a means to an end, and making music is actually, you know what, it's about increasing my Facebook likes, or getting, you know, that hype remix or that hype edit, so I can get DJ gigs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let me make this very clear, okay? I'm a visionary. And I don't care what anybody in this room or anybody around the world thinks, but I play for me to play to you. And on top of that, I'm a vinyl technician. I am not a DJ. Furthermore, I have been in this visionary of trying to understand music for, I think it's like maybe 23 years, but who's counting? But okay, just to say it, there you are. On top of that, 10 years of only doing production and running my label Nation for only 5 years, which is this year in April, I celebrated 5 years, and 10 releases until 2 days ago. I had the last release from JTC, which was an album called Creep Acid. And I just want to say, not to give credit and points, but I'm saying to you that my heart is here in the decks. To make music is not easy. At least when I come from a place where it's really significant for the definition of a disc jockey, if you have to lay it down. Really, like, I'm so new at making music. I'm glad to be there. I'm no genius, I'm no pro. But there is a pro and there is a genius, but there's a story to it. The story is that everything that's gold glimmers, and it, like, you know, has that shine.
I'd like to interject right now and just say,
I'd like to interject.
No, because JTC, I have to say this. I have to say this because it was made that JTC and Dabri and all these other aliases, you know, I understand, you know, because as Tad said earlier, you know, you have the heads and when we respect us, but this guy is a genius. And I'm saying that because he, with my other partner Decoy and also Hieroglyphic Beam, more or lessly, it was Tad Mullinix who taught me how to make music with machines. So what I know is pretty much from him. So when I make music, first of all, I'm making it so it's going to be made and it's going to be put out on someone's label. If not, it will be on my label.
So there'll always be a home for the music, always.
Excuse me?
There'll always be a home for the music, always.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I have nothing to lose.
Sure. Can we hear something?
This song is called Come Into My Life. Now, the vocals because the song was from, I don't know if you guys will be able to see it, but it's from the latest album from JTC, which is called Like No One.
Second latest
album.
The Creep Acid's on your label.
Yes, Creep Acid is, but you know, like next to
second latest.
This is an incredible album. Don't be fooled by just what you think is the acid and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. So this song is called Come Into My Life. It's produced by Saturn V, which is JTC and myself, with myself on vocals. There is, when we, like how they did it in the old days in Chicago, they would basically take their voice and sample it. Well, that's the thing that we're doing. Instead of taking from others and robbing and having to deal with money issues and stuff like this, we do our own music and we also sample ourselves. So you can get an idea of what this style of what is called jack beat sounds like.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Thank you.
So before
that's house music right there.
Yeah. So before we start talking about jack beat, which is going to be an interesting place to continue this dialogue, tell us a little bit about how that track came together.
Well, I don't know. We were spending a lot of time in the studio for a while.
Yep.
After we met, and
what does that look like? Is it you playing cards? Are you just playing PlayStation? Or you just?
I mean.
We're getting blazed and
we're getting blazed.
Let's go. Yeah.
I'm a mad smoker. I am a mad smoker. Like,
and if he is in the place, you're also a mad smoker.
Like, that's it. And what happened was, we were, you know, the thing is, Saturn V, the sound that is created from this concept is more atmospheric and it's deep. It will never be anything that will be coming more like it won't be anything like
we
that.
don't,
you know?
We don't try any big build-ups or wind-ups or anything like that.
It's no wind-ups. You'll never hear anything.
That's the thing in Detroit and Chicago. You didn't hear this trancey wind-up building moment during the breakdown and stuff. That was. The beats were made, and the DJs did all that.
And the DJs did all that. And at that time, this is what influenced us to keep along those grids. But then when it came to the vocal, I was at JT's house, at JTC's at the studios, and he pulled out, I was looking through some records, and it was, I think, an Anita Ward or something.
Joyce Sims.
Thank you. It was Joyce Sims. And the record is called Come Into My Life. It's an import. But it was just like we heard it, and the music was like, oh, yeah, it's sick. Oh, yeah, it's dope. We were like totally into it. And then we were like, damn, should we sample this person? And we were trying to like find it. And so then, you know, we smoked again.
I think we smoked again, and then we saw the record sitting
right there.
On the
it's
side,
like
and
if
we're
you
like,
have like
what
this record, and you're just sort of like setting it like right
what do
there.
we need? What do we need for a vocal in this track? We need to cut up some vocal, and then
so we're sitting there.
The record is
like,
over there in the corner.
Like It's like not like rock scissors, you know that rock scissors thing?
Rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, it wasn't that. It was like, you do it. No, you do it. No, you do it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Like,
Nobody wanted
continuously,
to do
it was
How
like,
did you decide?
no.
How did you decide? Did you flip a coin or something?
No,
No,
it
no,
was just like,
Melvin took the initiative. Can
Yes.
you imagine?
yes. I said, okay, I'll do it.
And what tool was you? Do you recall what tool was used to sample your vocal?
Really cheap microphone into a really cheap sound card.
Into a tight, cheap sound card. It was just like, and then actually, didn't we like do it with that thingy there? Or
Yeah, I think I had this
what we
Pioneer mixer that you can sample
we
with,
did
and
this
then
with this
you
Pioneer
hit
mixer.
record, and then it's like, okay, ready? Ready?
So it goes,
Come into my
come
life.
into
and I'm
my
like,
life.
okay, that's
And then
it.
it goes,
That's
come,
the end.
come.
And then we're just hitting it by hand. Come,
with this mixer, actually.
And then everything else was just all analog gear,
And
right?
everything
it was
was all
like
analog,
a
so-
707, a 909.
Okay. Were they
Yeah.
also,
101.
Were they synchronized? So the drums were 727. What else?
No,
A 707, right?
707.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
909.
909.
And the bass line is the
The SH101.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just one pattern in each, and just
No,
hit play and
just
synchronized
like-
and
No, it's total improvisation.
Everything is totally
yeah, exactly.
improvised.
One pattern in each machine, and then just we bring things in and
We
out.
just bring
whenever
things
we
in
feel.
and out. The thing is like when we're like recording, I don't know, like we're not like
It's a jam session.
It's not like, oh, well, you like do like a beat one day and then you like do like a snare and then a bass line.
No, none of that.
Everything is like
predetermined. We don't do any of that.
Like we're
predetermined
cutting
shit.
tracks in an hour.
Yeah.
In an hour.
Yeah.
in between blunts.
Yes.
In between blocks of what?
Yeah, yeah.
Smoking
I mean, and
sessions?
then like, actually, I tell you, when we did this record for, I know everybody here knows Green Velvet and knows this
Green
label.
Velvet. Anybody? Cashmere.
Cashmere.
Green Velvet. Nope.
Anyone? Okay.
We got
so
one.
We know. Okay, so the label we did like, how I see it, one of the last best records for this label. It was called Primitive Cypher.
X2.
And Saturn V, and also DeMarc.
Right.
But like, we did all those tracks in the night, and we smoked like mad. And the recording of the one song, which is called Time Elevation Rhythm, was like 24 minutes long. And like, it was a crazy story in short, because like I had the masters, and so then I was leaving from Tad's house in Ann Arbor, and I had to play at this bar called Moonshine, and Green Velvet is a good friend of mine. So at that time we were like really tight, and he came to hear me play. So I was playing this song, but like, because we do jam sessions, it was like I had to bring it in like 8 minutes before I could even let the people hear it. I was already preparing the track. And so then he heard it and literally begged me for the rest of the night. He begged me to put this out on his label and took me to his house to edit the song that night of a 24-minute track because he begged me because the song was so good.
We jammed for 24 minutes.
It was that sick.
That's how good the weed was.
And the song as well, yes.
So let me get this straight. So a lot of your music, I get the sense that it's about vibes and about just having a connection with these analog pieces of equipment. Hit play, create a pattern, hit play, create a pattern, hit play, bass line, just feeling the music and just recording whatever comes out. So there's no kind of going to one, a measure in a pattern, editing a snare, editing a kick, velocity sensitivity, these kind of things. None of that. It's literally raw beats.
Yes.
We're using
it is
hardware.
what it is. Yeah, sure.
Well, it might not all be analog, but yeah.
Sure. So for people who don't have the, who haven't had the opportunity to actually use an analog drum machine, what is the difference? Why use a 707? Or a 909.
You
or
could
a
use
why?
You could use this machine, and it's the same thing basically.
You could, but
the difference is that with the old machines, they have for the digital ones, I think they have a different analog to digital converter or something.
That's
like that.
one.
And then, but the analog machines you can't necessarily replicate with the digital. But anyway, this is some ridiculous debate about, you know, what is better, digital or analog, etc.
That's also true.
But we don't get caught up in that.
We don't because the
let's
thing
talk about
is
experience. I'm just, because we've, I remember the days. Well, I still have some old, drum machines. I remember what it's like to, program a song and have patterns and build patterns up. And if the pattern 23 minutes in is wrong, you have to stop everything and go and edit. Do you know what I mean? I remember those days of linear programming. So somebody who hasn't used a drum machine before, and is used to using something like Logic or Ableton or whatever, what is so special about using analog equipment? Not about the sound. I'm talking about just from a writing, from a production experience.
It's a hands-on experience, I think.
It's totally hands-on.
Yeah, if you're not, if you're trying to predetermine some track, you can sit here and say, okay, in 6 bars, I want the resonance to go really high on the synthesizer or something like that. But we learn from music in a way that when you're listening to improvised music, here are created some moments that aren't predetermined, really magical, special moments that can only come from a couple people working together or
it's
something
exactly
like that.
What Tad is saying. I absolutely agree. I mean, for me, as I had mentioned earlier, it's like learning from Tad in this sense. I never really had wanted to do music because I wanted to really make it in all over the world as a deck player. Because I thought the whole purpose of making music, when you hear music now being made, there's no emotional emancipation. There's no feeling.
With all new music?
With a lot of new music that I've heard, I haven't really been that impressed with a lot of the new music that's come out. I'm actually impressed with everything that's coming out in the old days. My girl Veronica runs a label. She does minimal wave, but the point is, the music that she's putting out has got feeling. It's like everything that she's doing has a purpose. Another guy named, you guys would know him because he's been just credited recently this year for having one of the freshest labels, is Ron Morelli, who runs the Lies label. Now, Lies also is not necessarily just trying to do a back to basics approach. He's also taking a lot of risk, and this is what I feel should be within the music, at least if you're doing it with machinery. And with me listening to a lot of music that I've heard nowadays, it's more or less made with computer, and honestly, I'm not interested.
But is the computer for you taking away the soul of the music?
Absolutely, and I just don't want to be bothered.
We have to talk about how, oh, okay, you have it. So we have to talk about how the computer has affected the music, right? So, in all the drum machines and synthesizers, we had a simple computer. So, the only difference is that now we have more complex computers so that we can alter different things at a certain time.
Yeah, but at that same point, there's just a matter of extreme where to go with it. And a lot of people, are just...
You can automate an improvisation.
But still, the way that I came up is I've seen it.
Look, basically what we do...
I see it, and it's only with machines for me. And bands and anyone that is going to play. I'm sorry if I make anyone feel wrong, but I'm an honest person.
I'm getting the fact that using... Your process is about capturing a moment. It's about recording. So you have these tools.
No, it's not just about recording.
No, I mean about capturing a moment. So you're talking, So everything that you make is a recording. It's capturing a moment, and it's basically recorded. You're using drum machines, analog, your process is about capturing a moment.
Yes.
And I think what you're saying is that, see, these are all tools at the end of the day. And what's really interesting about using a computer, from my perspective, is that a computer has not necessarily limitless possibilities, but you can do so much. And I think the thing about using computers, using any tool, is that knowing it's a tool, and it's getting that balance between the tools not taking over your creativity. And I think with drum machines and with an analog approach, it's almost like you can feel, it's very tactile, it's very in the moment. It's like literally, okay,
that's
hit
exactly
play,
how
sing,
I
sing,
feel.
sing, sing, and we'll capture the moment, have a drink, vibes, record those vibes, and you're capturing that moment.
Yes, it's
and
the
there's something
best way.
and there's something really beautiful about that.
Yes.
That perhaps working with tools that are more complicated, tools that have got a lot more choices, you could argue that it's a different way of working. You could argue
it's a different way, but
sure.
Okay, at that same point, there are a lot of people now that do that. But for me, personally, I have to hear something that is purely based on machines. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Why is it?
Yeah,
who said
tell
that?
me why.
No,
yeah.
who said that?
Please,
okay.
Please.
Come.
Please, stand up.
Let's go, man. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold on one second. We're just going to get the mic.
Yeah, I want to hear.
I'm really sorry, but I think this is bullshit because...
Be more specific about what is bullshit.
Yeah, bullshit for me is... Oh, yeah, thank you so much. No. I really love to hear music made by machines or people using machines to make music, but my dad is a musician and DJ, though I don't know your definition of a DJ, as you mentioned before. That's something complicated. I don't know. Well, music should be something moving people, something from, I don't know, wherever it comes from, if it's machines, if it's people making sounds with voices or instruments or things they use as instruments. But I think it's not important if it's machines or not.
I will agree with you. I will agree with you. But the point that I'm trying to say, that I will now say again, is that when you are making music, in the sense of how I'm doing it, I can't deal with an electronics. I don't feel right. It doesn't feel right for me. It feels like it's like I'm taking something because of maybe how I grew up, and all of the music that I've heard from people like Connie Plank, people like, I don't know, Joy Division, New Order, Palais Schaumburg. I mean, I can name so many people that have just done it so much with like hardware, and they have made Psyche. I can name so many people, but these are just one type of people. These are not one type of people that I'm saying. It's like these are different groups of people, and they all have a significance with instrumentation than if it would be with a machine. I just would know it would sound a bit different.
But you also embrace the technology that the computer delivers you in form of email and Facebook or MySpace? Or do you just limit it to the music making process? Or do you also embrace other advantages of new technology?
You're asking me, do I embrace? No.
You also, it's not about only being nostalgic and using hands-on equipment.
I'm open to it, but it's like I want to, when it's the time for it. She can answer, please.
May I ask you something?
Sure.
Then? You said before that for you, I don't know if I use the right words, but for you, the only music you really like is electronical made music.
No.
But this is how I got it.
No.
So, no, what I just wanted to say, because when I said this is bullshit, is for me that I do love electronic music, but I as well like a singer on the stage with a piano, you know?
Yeah, I love that. I love all that.
Yeah, I know.
I love all of that.
I get it, but it's for me, it sounds kind of wrong to say, yeah, I just need this to feel it. Yeah, because that's not real for me. I don't know, somehow.
No, I wouldn't.
I think one has to imagine what it's like being in a studio with you. I think I'm getting the sense that you have your tools, you know, you have your drum, you have your nest, so to speak, your way of working, and it's almost like you're performing. You talk a lot about saying that you're not a DJ, as in you're not, you know, you talk a lot about this idea of not being a kind of request DJ or whatever. I really get that. I really get what you're trying to say.
Yeah,
no, I get it.
Because
because for you,
no
sound.
Yeah,
it's a
I'll
bit
answer it easily.
Everything you do is a performance, right? So when you're broadcasting music, whether it's on a stage or whether it's in a club, you're basically broadcasting your perspective on sound. That's what it's about. So when you're making music, it's a bit like you're capturing a moment, and you're using these tools to capture a moment. So I think what you're talking about is the fact that perhaps there's something about using digital audio workstations, because I think the bottom line is, you know, the 999 is a computer. Do you know what I mean? SP12 is still a computer. It's just a different form. You know?
Yes.
So I think what you're talking about is the role and function of computers in your creative process.
Yes.
And perhaps where things have got to now, it's almost like there's too much.
Yes.
You know. But you know what's really interesting about what you're saying? I think that particularly a lot of
I'm not trying to disrespect
No,
anyone,
not at all. No, I think this is a common. I think this is actually a dilemma that most producers face at some point. You know, it's a bit like having this idea that, you know, you can have a program like, you know, Logic or the tools that we use, and there's something beautiful about using a preset. It's convenient, right? But by using a preset, you actually don't understand the value of, like, let's look at a compressor, for example. If you use presets all the time, there's something good about bang, 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 okay, I need it to sound really hard, fast, you know, in one respect. But there's actually something quite nice about just knowing what attack does, knowing what hold does, knowing what release does, knowing what sidechain does. Because that, at the end of the day, if you were in a studio when computers didn't have compressors, you had to learn how to use a Drama micro, you know, you had to learn how to use a Valley, you know, you had to learn how to use the analog hardware. You had to learn it, right?
Absolutely.
So
I'm still learning.
Sure.
That's the thing. I've said it already. I'm not a genius in making music at all.
Sure. So I
just make what I can.
Do you think that a lot of the artists that you were inspired by that used a lot of these analog machines, that had they had access to the digital machines in their day, that they would have actually taken advantage of the things that digital brings to the table? I think that at the time that analog at the time was the high tech of the day, and they were the new kids on the block using new tools. But now you have unlimited possibility, and it's a different skill set that has to go into using these tools now. But there's a whole generation, like the ones you were mentioning, that will have like their Jacking House playlist, and they're able to go and have their Jacking House playlist and their bebop playlist and their 70s rock playlist and their 90s jump up California drum and bass playlist. And so right now you have a whole generation of amazingly informed young people that are getting into this, and they have the digital tools that allow them to not be stuck, say, for instance, in, say, a 70s sound or a particular genre sound, and they're more able to kind of, create whatever kind of a metaphor that they want using this digital technology, I think.
I have one comment to make about that. And when I talked about this gentleman that I just met that just learned about this new style of music called Jacking House, what he was talking about was called Jacking House, but it was some new young group of people that didn't really they like Daft Punk or something like that, and they just made some music and they liked this key phrase, you know, and it didn't have anything to do with Jacking House, you know. It wasn't, and the thing, my point of that was that we have this technology-based music, right? But people want to constantly refuse the heritage that comes with it.
Don't get me started on heritage.
Right now,
this is exactly the thing. This is what I was trying to explain.
Sure.
Okay, maybe I'm not as smart as like, oh, and I have to say it in a certain way, but this is how I said it. But to the lady, you know, if she's still here, I didn't mean anything wrong. I'm just being honest, and it's the heritage of it. You know, Tad pretty much broke it down. But at that same point, you know, I don't mean anything wrong to you. It's just like, I'm 40 years old, and your point is also very clear. It's like, yeah, what if? Well, then, if those people at that time, you know, that had those digital points, and if we were digital back then I would be able to give you a more explainable answer for that. But right now, it's not like that.
I just think that what you were saying just then about the heritage is that now, in this present, we are the artists. We have access to the people that listen to our music. So when someone's going and downloading your music from somewhere, they should be able to see who does that music, Google you, and to be able to get the real heritage from you.
No, really good point. But the challenge is, it's when it, you know, this whole like thing. Like, for example, you know, if you know, we all have it where if you like, you know, for example, you know, Saturn, you know, you'll like another kind of, how, do you know what I mean? I think what it's about heritage and connection. And I think in the digital space, sometimes things can get lost in translation. And that's the problem. There was a time, you know, not so long ago when, you know, things were a lot more rootsy. You know, so if you said to someone Jacking House or Chicago House or hip hop, you know, it meant something, not only about the music, but about the culture.
Is it really about the declaration, though? I mean, in the end, it's only, I mean, when you say it has a page that says Jacking House, and it isn't that, but if he likes that type of music, does it really matter what it's called?
No, it doesn't matter. I mean, they can have the word. I don't care, you know what I mean? But the thing is that doesn't remove the real heritage, you know what I mean? Yeah. The heritage doesn't go away because they want to use this word Jacking House. Okay. Same as with Skrillex and dubstep.
I urge you to hire an old drum machine, if they've still got them, just because it's a completely different experience. If you do hire a real 909, and I'm not talking about samples in the EXS or Ableton, I'm talking the real thing. It's a really interesting experience.
Hey, I just want to say that Melvin and I and my colleagues, we don't get caught up in what is old and what is new. Yeah. We don't fetishize about old technology or anything like that. We just use what we are inspired by, and then we just go with it. And the people that respond to us in a harsh way about, hey, you're using only analog, are you analog only crew or something like that, we're not. I mean, we use digital equipment and computers and all that kind of stuff. Our interest is just a certain tradition, and we're expanding on it and trying to create something new from it. And I hope that everybody can understand where we're coming from. I guess in the end,
it's all about what comes out, right? Sure. It's about the music.
Yes, it is, but let me also say, like Tad made that point, you know, it's like the heritage. It's like, I know we're out of time.
We don't come from nowhere. We don't come from commercials. We don't come from companies that produce technology and stuff like that. I mean, we come from a musical heritage, and that's what we're...
That's the whole thing. It's like,
Detroit and Chicago, we have a long musical, dance music heritage, and that's where we're coming
music,
from.
But so also Christian music. I sing in my church. You know, like, I'm not like just like out here
but
DJing.
But Boris
you know?
K, this guy, he's Muslim, or so it's not about religion,
it's like, you know, it's not about any of that. You know, I mean, like, the music that we're doing. So, you know, everyone understands. I know we're out of time, but I need to explain this. That Jack beat is an influence of everything, like including the music of the woman that was speaking up here at the platform, you know? I mean, everything. Like, I want to make jazz music, but I don't know how to do it yet. But I want to, because it makes me different. And that's what I'm trying to say, you know.
Thanks so much for listening.
Yeah.
Everybody here is awesome. Thanks so much for enduring all the banter. You've all been so patient. Thank you so much. Vielen Dank.